In August 1944, the Allied advance across France came to a screeching halt. It wasn't because of German Tigers or Panthers, but because General Patton's tanks had simply run dry. The solution was a desperate, non-stop conveyor belt of trucks, driven by exhausted men who ignored every rule of safety to keep the army moving. This was the Red Ball Express. While we often praise the tanks, today we are going to explore the steel machines that actually won the War of Logistics, starting with the undisputed king of the road. We begin with the absolute icon of Allied logistics, the GMC CCKW 353, universally and affectionately known as the Jimmy, or the Deuce and a Half. As the primary cargo hauler for the Red Ball Express, its role was simple yet vital. Carry everything from beans to bullets across shattered French roads. Powered by a 270 cubic inch inline-six engine and featuring a 6x6 drivetrain, it was rated for 2.5 tons off-road, though desperate drivers often overloaded it to double that capacity. While its open cab left drivers freezing in the European winter, its mechanical reliability made it the single most important vehicle in the entire supply chain. Closely related to the Standard, Jimmy was its shorter brother, the GMC CCKW 352. This was the short wheelbase version of the Standard truck, primarily designed as a prime mover for artillery rather than pure cargo, but drafted into the Red Ball convoys when every chassis counted. It shared the same engine and transmission, but sacrificed cargo space for a tighter turning radius and better maneuverability in ruined French villages. Although it couldn't carry the sheer volume of the long wheelbase version, its ability to navigate tight supply depots made it a useful, if less common, asset on the Red Ball route. Moving away from GMC, we find the Chevrolet G506, often overshadowed but crucially important as the standard 1.5-ton truck of the U.S. Army. These were smaller and lighter than the Deuce and a Half, tasked with general utility roles and moving supplies to units that didn't require the massive tonnage of the main convoys. It featured a reliable 235 cubic inch engine and 4 Arc-4 capability, making it surprisingly agile in mud where heavier trucks might sink. However, its smaller payload meant it wasn't the star of the long-haul routes, serving better as a distributor once supplies reached the forward dumps. While GMC dominated the U.S. Army, we must mention the Studebaker US-6, a visually similar but distinct 2.5-ton truck. These were produced in massive numbers, primarily for Lend-Lease to the Soviet Union, but many stayed in Western Europe to plug gaps in the logistics line. The Studebaker used a different Hercules engine and was noted for being slightly more robust in extreme cold than the GMC, a trait that the Russians loved. Its main limitation on the Red Ball Express was parts compatibility. Since it didn't share many components with the GMC fleet, keeping them running was a headache for mechanics. Rounding out the medium truck category is the International Harvester M5H6. This was another 2.5-ton 6x6 truck, primarily used by the U.S. Navy and Marines, but finding its way into Army logistics units in the European theater due to vehicle shortages. It was a sturdy, well-built machine with a locking rear differential that gave it superior traction compared to the standard GMC. Despite its excellent off-road performance, it suffered the same fate as the Studebaker. It was a non-standard vehicle in a GM-dominated world, making it a logistical orphan that was used until it broke and then often discarded. To maximize cargo space on the same chassis, engineers created the GMC AFKWX 353, a distinctive cab-over-engine version of the famous Jimmy. By shifting the driver's cab forward over the engine, the design allowed for a much longer cargo bed on the same wheelbase, significantly increasing the volume of light but bulky supplies like rations or uniforms. While efficient in terms of space, the high center of gravity made it prone to tipping over on the banked, bomb-cratered roads of France. Consequently, drivers hated the cab-over for its rough ride and dangerous handling, relegating it to rear area duties whenever possible. Transitioning from the heavy haulers, we look at the smaller vehicles that kept the convoys organized, starting with the Dodge WC-51 weapons carrier. Despite the aggressive name on the Red Ball Express, this 3/4-ton truck acted as a utility runner, carrying officers, mail, and urgent small parts deliveries that couldn't wait for a slow convoy. It was open-topped, rugged, and fast, powered by a torquey flathead 6 that allowed it to zip between lumbering columns of trucks. Its lack of armor and weather protection was a drawback, but its versatility made it the pickup truck of the operation. For heavier loads that still required speed, the Army utilized the Dodge WC-62, a stretched 6-wheeled variant of the weapons carrier. Essentially a WC-51 with an extra axle added for 6x6 capability. It bridged the gap between the light Jeeps and the heavy 2.5-ton trucks, carrying squad-sized elements or dense cargo loads up to 1.5 tons. It offered excellent traction in the mud that plagued the route in late 1944. However, the added weight on the original engine made it sluggish on hills, earning it a reputation for being underpowered compared to its smaller cousins. No list of WWII vehicles is complete without the Willys MB and Ford GPW, collectively known as the Jeep. On the Red Ball route, Jeeps were the nervous system of the operation, driven by military police to enforce traffic discipline and by convoy commanders trying to keep their trucks together. With a 4-cylinder Go Devil engine and lightweight frame, it could bypass traffic jams by literally driving through ditches and fields. While it carried almost no cargo, the Red Ball Express would have collapsed into gridlock without the Jeep's ability to shuttle orders up and down the line. For even faster communication, dispatch riders relied on the Harley-Davidson WLA. These motorcycles were modified for military use with blackout lights, scabbards for Thompson submachine guns, and heavy-duty luggage racks for satchels of orders. They allowed messengers to weave through the bumper-to-bumper traffic that frequently clogged the narrow French roads, delivering manifests and route changes. Their primary limitation was safety. On slick, muddy roads at night, motorcycle couriers had one of the highest accident rates of any drivers on the Red Ball Express. As the supply lines lengthened, the Army needed more efficiency than straight trucks could provide, introducing the Autocar U71 T. This was a dedicated 4 to 5 ton tractor truck designed specifically to tow semi-trailers, a concept that was relatively new to military logistics at the time. With a cab-over design and a massive engine, it could pull loads that would require 2 or 3 standard GMC trucks, maximizing the tonnage per driver. It was slow and heavy, struggling on steep grades, but on the flat highways of France, it was the king of bulk efficiency. A similar beast was the Federal 94 R43 tractor truck, another specialized hauler used to tow heavy cargo trailers along the Red Ball route. Like the Autocar, it was a vital part of the shift toward tractor-trailer operations, intended to move massive quantities of supplies from the ports to the forward depots. It was robust and powerful, but like many specialized vehicles, it suffered from a lack of spare parts compared to the ubiquitous GMCs. Its impact was felt most in the rear areas, clearing the massive stockpiles at the beaches so the smaller trucks could run them forward. These tractors were useless without their burden, the most common being the 10-ton stake and platform semi-trailer. These simple wooden-sided trailers allowed the Army to move massive singular items like crate engines, replacement tank tracks, or huge pallets of flour that wouldn't fit in a standard truck bed. They effectively doubled the efficiency of the driver, who could drop a full trailer and immediately pick up an empty one to return to port. Their only downside was their lack of off-road capability. If a trailer bogged down in the mud, it became a massive anchor that was nearly impossible to recover. Fuel was the lifeblood of Patton's army, and moving it required the specialized GMC CCKW 750-gallon tanker. Built on the standard Jimmy chassis, this variant replaced the cargo bed with a dual-compartment steel tank, designed to transport gasoline directly to the frontline armored divisions. It retained the excellent mobility of the cargo truck, but added a dangerous element: driving a rolling bomb through combat zones where strafing aircraft were a constant threat. Despite the danger, these tankers were the highest priority vehicles on the road. Without them, the tanks stopped and the war stopped. For bulk fuel transport further back in the line, the Express used the 2,000-gallon semi-trailer. Towed by the Autocar or Federal tractors mentioned earlier, these massive steel tanks could carry nearly 3 times the fuel of the standard GMC tanker, acting as mobile gas stations for the depots. They were essential for moving fuel from the Pluto pipeline endpoints to the intermediate dumps. However, their sheer weight and length made them difficult to maneuver in the tight, rubble-filled streets of French towns, often causing traffic bottlenecks. The roads were dangerous not just because of accidents, but because of enemy action, necessitating the Dodge WC-54 ambulance. While not a cargo hauler, these vehicles were embedded in the convoy streams to treat drivers injured in accidents or attacks. With a sealed rear body and a heater, a luxury in 1944, it provided a safe, warm environment for casualties. While top-heavy and slow, its presence was a morale booster for the drivers who knew that medical help was rolling right alongside them. When a truck inevitably broke down or slid into a ditch, the call went out for the Ward LaFrance M1A1 heavy wrecker. This massive 6x6 beast was the guardian angel of the Red Ball Express, equipped with dual boom cranes and heavy winches capable of dragging a loaded truck out of the deepest mud. It was a complex machine to operate, requiring a skilled crew but it was essential for clearing the road. Under red ball rules, a disabled truck had to be pushed aside, and only the wrecker could salvage it later. Its impact was measured in the millions of dollars of equipment it saved from being abandoned. For lighter recovery tasks, the Diamond T969 medium wrecker was utilized. Slightly smaller than the Ward LaFrance but built on the robust Diamond T chassis, it featured a Holmes twin-boom wrecker assembly that could lift and tow the standard 2.5-ton trucks with ease. It was renowned for its durability and high-quality construction, often considered the Cadillac of trucks by its crews. Its limitation was merely its lifting capacity. It couldn't handle the heavy tractor-trailers, but for 90% of the fleet, it was the perfect rescue vehicle. Convoy protection was a serious concern, leading to the use of the M2 and M3 half-tracks. These vehicles, with wheels in the front and tracks in the back, provided armored escort for the convoys, protecting them from German stay-behind units or snipers. They could mount machine guns and carry a squad of infantry to fight off ambushers. While they burned fuel at an alarming rate and required high maintenance for their tracks, they provided the teeth that the soft-skinned truck columns desperately needed. The ultimate convoy defender was the M16 multiple-gun motor carriage, ominously nicknamed the Meat Chopper. This was a half-track mounting a quad mount of 50-caliber machine guns designed for anti-aircraft defense but devastatingly effective against ground targets. If a convoy was strafed by the Luftwaffe or ambushed by infantry, the M16 could unleash a wall of lead that instantly suppressed the threat. Its only downside was its rarity. There were never enough of them to protect every convoy, making them a prized asset for the most critical supply runs. To ensure the route was safe before the trucks even arrived, the M8 Greyhound armored car was often used for route reconnaissance. This fast, six-wheeled vehicle carried a 37 mm cannon and a powerful radio, scouting ahead of the main columns to check for blown bridges or enemy roadblocks. It was lightly armored and vulnerable to anti-tank weapons, but its speed allowed it to spot trouble and radio back warnings, saving entire convoys from driving into traps. Efficiency wasn't just about trucks, it was about capacity, which is where the Ben-Hur one-ton trailer came in. Towed behind almost any vehicle from a Jeep to a GMC, this simple steel box on wheels allowed units to increase their payload without adding more engines to the convoy. It was rugged, simple, and could be manhandled by troops when detached. However, backing up a truck with a short wheelbase trailer attached was a nightmare for inexperienced drivers, leading to many jackknifed rigs clogging the road. Keeping the Red Ball Highway open was a constant battle against the Earth itself, fought with the Caterpillar D7 bulldozer. These tracked engineering vehicles were stationed along the route to fill bomb craters, clear rubble from destroyed villages, and widen muddy paths into drivable roads. Slow and unarmed, they were nonetheless vital. Without the D7s, the Red Ball Express would have ground to a halt the first time it rained. Their impact was foundational, literally paving the way for victory. Finally, we have the unsung hero of the loading depots, the Lorraine Motor Crane. Mounted on a heavy truck chassis, this mobile crane was essential for loading and unloading heavy crates, ammunition pallets, and replacement engines that were too heavy for men to lift. It sped up the turnaround time at the depots significantly, allowing trucks to get back on the road faster. While it never saw the front lines, its ability to keep the flow of supplies moving at the transfer points was the hidden efficiency multiplier of the entire operation. From the nimble Jeep to the lumbering Ward LaFrance wrecker, these were the machines that fed the Allied war machine. They weren't glamorous, they weren't immune to bullets, and they were driven to destruction. But they did the one thing that mattered: they delivered. If you enjoyed this deep dive into logistics, you might be wondering about the men who drove these trucks and the dangers they faced. Click the video on the right to hear the story of the Red Ball Express drivers, and don't forget to subscribe for more heavy metal history.